Cameron sits at the table as the bear busies himself near the stovetop with his back to the coyote. Again, the coyote contemplates leaving, either by asking Brian again or just walking out the door. Literally run.
Yeah, just flee.
It's so uncomfortable. Even though Cameron is having doubts about Brian, obviously, he's basically having less doubts about Brian than he had about Devin.
Oh yeah, you're right about that.
By the standards of Cameron, this is like a really chill amount of doubts, and it's like no, run.
I mean, it's really weird too, because Cameron is like in a setting that should be triggering to him. Like literally, he was like, I grew up in a trailer and it was really bad, and being around meth people was like a problem that I dealt with. He should be recognizing all of these warning signs.
Yeah.
And he's not. He's just like, oh, this is a new person. Fine.
There might, on some level, like we already get this sense that Brian is like, wait, somebody that might understand me. And so he might be like fixated on Cameron in a way that might protect him in the short term, but be very bad for him in the long term. And on some level, Cameron might have a familiarity here that might almost calm him a bit in a weird way. Because despite the bad history, he's in a familiar setting, but that's a very bad connection to make. That's a very bad time for them to get like, no.
Yeah. No,
Arturo is MIA and might be
thing.
dead. Your boyfriend is probably like tied to a water heater somewhere and something like, I don't know where he is.
I just want to put it out there that Arturo got done dirty. Like, yeah, he's the straightest guy in the world and is kind of a dude bro, but
he didn't do anything wrong.
Liked him.
He went way out of his way to help his friends, and then made some mistakes in a social dynamic that nobody was really telling him about, and it was just kind of like airheaded about the meds thing, which in a way like he's the one that should be the least responsible for keeping track of Cameron's like stuff out of the three people here.
No, I don't think he's at fault at all for anything that happened, you know? And like, as you said, like he goes way out of his way for his friends, but these are people that he like hasn't spoken to in like 5 years, you know? Like Cam and what's his name? Devin said like, oh, I just called him because he was like on the top of my list and I knew he lived in Peyton. Or wherever.
So his name had to start with an A.
Yeah, exactly. So he just got the shit end of the stick, and he was like, oh yeah, like those guys I like hung out with in college and partied with, like hell yeah. Like I'll go see them. Like, dude, Artie I feel like is like a reliable bro. I have a thing about this where it's like, in my adult life, I have a lot of like, there are certain types of people that just aren't really a part of my life anymore. And like that particular like straight college dude bro is just like, I don't have that representation in my friend group, really. Like I'm very rarely hanging out with an Artie, but in college, I hung out with a lot of Arties.
Yeah.
And surprisingly, like I kind of, like I find a lot of nostalgia in that particular friend, like that archetype, because there's something very disarming and comfortable about a very normal person who is there just to have a good time. And what I mean by that is like, I think they do some like deft characterization with Artie so far, where he's like, yeah, man, like I hooked you up, you know, like I'm the one who's taking credit for that. And it's like, it's a clever way to signpost that he's like, oh yeah, like you were just like my two gay friends. Like, of course I hooked you up. You're the two gay people I know. But there's like a sort of Labrador, like golden retriever energy to that, where he's like,
he just wants to feel good about that thing and so on. And it is even like shown to us that like it's him rewriting the narrative because he just like happened to mention these people to somebody else at some point, and then he wasn't even why they met.
It's like it's kind of also just like I don't know, it's like a party boy virtue signaling. It's like a weird way to describe that, but he's like,
he wants to be known as the guy that makes people feel good.
Yes, exactly. And like, he's clearly not bigoted or anything, or like any of his bigotry is just a result of, you know, like heteronormative, you know, dumb airheaded life. I find a lot of nostalgia and comfort in spaces like that because growing up queer, you are very rarely put into situations where the rest of your friend group is all queer. You have to like make do with what you have, right? And so, of course, we want the world to strive towards being open with everyone and good with everyone, but sometimes the best you could get, or the best that you could find, were people who just didn't care, or at least they didn't care in the wrong way, you know, where it's like, okay, you might not understand what it means for me to be gay or what it means for me to be queer because you're too dumb to like really put much thought into it. You're just so in your own world that it doesn't matter. It's just like a weird quirk of me that you like, you know, I don't want to say tolerate, but like that just like is like a fun part of like, I'm flavor in your life, straight person. And like, of course, I don't want to live in a world that is all that, but I find a lot of like, I don't know, like quiet support in that. And so having a character like Artie who's just like, yeah, like I hooked up the two gay friends that I have, these two guys who I know, and the only thing in common between them that I know is that they're both gay. Like, haha, aren't I a great ally? It's like, no, you're not, but you tried. Like, you get a head pat. Like, good for you. And I like being around. Like, I don't want that to be my only friends who have, you know, understanding of queer spaces. But when a guy like Artie shows up and is a reliable, safe space, I find that very comforting. And it's interesting to see that be the first side character introduced in this story, because that's literally what he is. He's your dude bro that you smoked weed with in college, who probably isn't completely, you know, politically correct or on the up and up about everything, but he also is just there to have a good time, and he wants to be reliable and he wants to help people. So he drives 5 hours out of the way. He buys you weed because he thinks it will be fun to like hang out with his old college friends again, and isn't concerned about, you know, heady topics like identity or oppression or even, you know, like mental illness. He's just like, nah, man, like I'm here to have fun. Like, let's go on a road trip, bro. It's just a very golden retriever personality that I don't really have a lot of in my daily life as an adult who's like a complex human being who has an understanding of the world. And I don't know.
It's very impressive when there's someone that you haven't maintained that much contact with, and then on just cold call, they'll fucking drive overnight for multiple hours to get you out of a bind.
Yeah, exactly. And he just like, you know, as you mentioned, like he stumbles into this with a sort of poor understanding of the social dynamic, and like he makes some gaffes. Yeah, like he gives Cameron, you know, weed, and this is not me, you know, doing the stoner talk, but like that's like an easy mistake for someone to make. It's like, oh, it's just weed, like who cares, you know? Like I can see his mindset, where he came from with a lot of this. He's just a dude who is like, oh fuck yeah, I haven't seen these guys in like 5 years, like let's hang out, sick. And then he gets fucking killed for it, presumably.
Yeah, Unfortunately, Arturo didn't know what the real moral test of Echo is, which is never piss.
Yes, exactly.
Just never piss.
Never piss.
That's the thing. The final girl
his
never pisses.
His fatal flaw.
Yep.
His fatal flaw is that he took a whiz in a Howley story, and
yep. That's like having sex in a straight story. You're definitely gonna die now.
That's his blind spot. This is a gay story. In gay stories, the guy who pees first dies first.
Yep, that's how it works. Just Chase.
My comedically small bladder will get me killed first in the horror movie.
This is like reason 500. This is specifically designed to be a horror for you. 1, gay horror. 2, sleep paralysis. 3, peeing is really bad. It gets you attacked, and it happens every 5 minutes. Pete, fucking Chase takes a piss, hallucinates something. Chase takes a piss, gets attacked by Brian. Chase takes a piss.
Kudzu takes a piss.
Yeah, Kudzu takes a piss. Chase gets attacked by fucking Duke. Like, it just keeps going.
Oh no!
The fatal flaw. They were all together. They found Cameron. All they had to do was turn around and leave, but already had to take a piss. The devil's lettuce,
exactly.
the devil's lemonade, and went off into the forest.
Oh no, the devil's lemonade.
They went off into the forest to take a piss, and the Shadow Monster and Brian. Here we go.
Yeah, the stink of outdoor pee just lures the demons in Echo. Apparently,
in space, no one can hear you scream, but in Echo, everyone can hear you piss.
That's why there's no porta potties in Echo. It's too dangerous to pee.
I saw the most cursed fucking tweet today where it was like, "What are you cooking chicken in here?" Just kidding. You make a lot of noise when you piss. I like that. I'm like, I don't. Did not like that at all. I think it was set to like a visual novel character or something. I forgot the context now, but it was like fucking one eyebrow raised in the fucking DreamWorks face. It's so cursed. Oh. Anyway, raincoat monster.
Yeah.
That's why he wears the raincoat.
He's wearing the raincoat to protect him from the pee.
Yes, that's the primal force in all of Echo is the quartz and the piss. It's a war between these two elements. All of the piss
collected at the bottom of the canyon has fermented and turned into a demon.
Playing Arches and Echo at the same time has been a trip because we just recorded this last part 2 days ago, and then yesterday I recorded the forest bit with Stephanie and TJ's route, which itself it directly ties into like they literally describe elements. What was her name? Janice, like, literally just describes the thing that we encountered just now in Arches. I'm like, what the? Okay, here we go. Apparently, literally, you just assume everything Janice has ever said is true. It's not good. That's not good.
You know, now that you say that, that actually rings true. That isn't anything I ever thought about.
Yeah.
But it is correct. And
Janice
you want to know what
literally
else?
Back to back describes the shadow in the forest, the UFOs from Brian, and then talks about that. So then after that, she talks about like the quartz and the mines playing back trauma, and I'm like, well, obviously that must be true too then, because everything else you just said came true. So,
and you know what else? Janice also pees on the side of the road.
Oh,
so there is a connection here.
She's the unifying trait of all the routes in Echo is somebody always encounters Janice peeing, and that's the first sign that something's wrong.
We need to make a thumbnail. We need to make a thumbnail that's like the Echo iceberg with a big red arrow pointing to Janice.
Yeah, she's
then like a mysterious yellow liquid in a beaker.
She's the catalyst for all of Echo. She bites the piss apple, and then everything starts going wrong.
The clickbait headline is "She's the most important character?" Question mark, question mark, question mark.
In this essay, I will. The seventh route of Echo, Janice.
Janice. The secret mastermind.
Oh no. Total immersion. Alright, another glance towards the window confirms Raincoat Monster is still out there. This time, standing high in the trees, perched on a branch, still watching, always watching, waiting for you to piss. Cameron quickly looks away again. He feels deep down that if he leaves, another terrible thing is going to happen. While he believes the bear's story about what happened, something about this trailer is extremely uncomfortable, making him even more anxious. He thinks that must be something to do with his upbringing, the long, narrow space feeling familiar in the worst of ways, like a urethra. It's
what the fuck, Keith?
It's like I'm on that channel now. It's like when he said like deep down, I was like, deep down he really needs to piss. It's like suddenly falling ill, feeling a pressure, and being reminded of all the awful feelings one has when they're especially sick. Meanwhile, Brian is chattering on about how chamomile is particularly effective when it comes to anxiety, and I can't accept that conversation coming from
Yeah,
Brian.
no, me neither. I can't imagine. It's like what you mentioned last time, where it's like it's hard to imagine Brian going to the grocery store. Like, imagine Brian being like, "Yeah, you gotta chew some kava root." It's like, no, I don't think so. I don't think so, bro.
It's really good for headaches.
I take 1 melatonin every night so I can get to sleep. Like, fuck off.
Like just normal behaviors, because like as much as he's like a horror force of nature nightmare thing in the narrative, like he exists day to day. He has like he uses bug spray. He's got baking soda somewhere in here. There's just like a labeled salt box up there with the shitty little stick out piece of metal and the little flap of cardboard inside that gets stuck, and how the little piece of metal, like, it leaks some of the salt around it when you pour, and like these are things he deals with. He's just a person. On some level.
Well, I mean, it's just like, it's hard to imagine Brian going to the DMV. You know what I mean? Like Brian taking a license photo.
You gotta wonder, like he's got a license presumably for his car that he probably legally owns. Like he's had to like wait through bureaucracy before.
has to go log into his payroll website to get his W-2 so he can file his taxes. It's just like very odd to imagine this.
Brian is chattering on about how chamomile is particularly effective when it comes to anxiety, and Cameron vaguely wonders why he's moving around so much if he's just making tea. Mostly, though, Cameron is trying to think clearly, get his thoughts to line up correctly with the fog he still feels clouding his brain. It's making him extremely tired, and a couple of times the coyote's convinced that he's still dreaming. It's almost like he's high again, but without any of the positives of being high.
Probably because he was drugged.
Yeah,
he probably
definitely.
Literally is coming down from something.
Like, I felt like Brian was surprised he woke up.
Yeah.
And he was surprised by how long he was out. Although he was, like, attacked by a shadow monster, we have no fucking... Or at least I have no fucking clue what the rules are there.
Yeah.
His anxiety is already calming down, though, despite the worry that whatever was in the forest might have done some kind of damage to his brain. He focuses his thoughts on Devon, trying to think clearly. Would the bear really leave him alone like this? He could have at least left a message, to let him know that this is what he wanted, that Cameron is safe in the situation, but Cameron also knows that wouldn't have been all that practical. If Devon was really in a hurry, which he definitely would have been, he would have left him behind because he knew it was for the best, and if he knew the situation was safe. Like, on some level, it's been, like, enough hours that he might have, like, built some level of trust with Brian, hypothetically, if you ignore everything we know about Brian. Like going from Cameron's perspective, because it wasn't he out for, like, 5 hours or 3 hours or something?
Three hours at least, yeah.
There isn't really a way he could have left a message anyway, except maybe a text. But with no phone and no service, there's so many ways to leave messages. This is weird rationalizing. If this Brian guy really wants to help, though, he should have gone to the highway instead. He has to have a car, right? That's the main thing, is I was thinking, is like, you would expect Brian to have a car, and we know that Brian has a car, and so you would think that's the gap in his narrative, is if Cameron realizes he has a car, then why would Devon be walking to the highway?
Yeah, exactly.
It's not like he can just survive out here in an old trailer. Not even that, you'd expect him to have a landline. Cameron fixes his face into a pleasant smile, knowing that it seemed to set the old bear at ease whenever he did. Do you have a car?
Do you have a car?
Oops, sorry.
No, it's fine. I mean, it's good, though, because that's literally what we were just saying he should be asking about.
It's just sitting.
Do you have a car?
Brian, seemingly absorbed in what he's doing, glances back. Well, I kind of share a truck with another guy in town. He happens to be out of town with that truck right now. Of course he would be, right?
Oh, okay. It's a lot of coincidences. Big red flags immediately.
Brian smiles at him again. It's like conceivable that people would like share resources in these situations, but you don't have friends, Brian.
I mean, Cameron also Cameron wasn't really talking correct or like thinking correctly when Devon said, but Devon said like, I don't remember if he specifically mentions Duke before, but he was like, something happened, we have to go. Do you remember if he mentioned Duke in that moment? If he was like some guy or whatever? Because if so, that would be a huge red flag to Cameron. But I can't recall if it came up.
I can't remember. He was like, I know he was trying to reason with Cameron in the motel room about how something's up and they have to leave, but Cameron's freaking out too bad and ran off. And I don't remember if they talked about Duke on the road.
Yeah,
it's relatively quickly. It was like, Artie's gone.
Yeah, you're right. And so maybe he just didn't bring it up.
Brian smiles at him again. I can see why Daniel likes you. You're a friendly kid.
Oh, you mean Devin?
Shit, yeah. The brain doesn't remember things like I used to.
You're fine. You're just way too addled on meth. It's okay. It happens to all of us.
It's one of those days. Cameron stares at the table, feeling like the exchange was very strange, but it's hard to think through the cloudiness. Despite the dulled anxiety, the feeling is worrying him more and more.
I'm actually feeling really weird. I'm so tired.
Well, considering what happened to you, that makes sense. Not to pry, but you do any drugs?
No, not anymore at least.
Not since like a few hours ago.
I mean, I had some weed like hours ago, but it should have worn off by now.
Brian shrugs. People always say weed ain't a big deal, but it's probably what fucked me up the most back when I first tried it. I doubt that.
Yeah, I highly doubt that.
You've done some shit.
One of the things I wanted to mention, this is more like a anti-anxiety PSA for people, but it's something that has calmed me down in the past when I have gotten too baked. Weed, your THC generally, like at its very high end, has a half-life of about 4 hours in your body. So if you ever get too stoned and you have a moment of clarity, just remember, about 4 hours after the moment you first started feeling really high, you should be coming down. Granted, that can differ if you took like a bunch of edibles or if you kept smoking, but for the most part, if you take a weed gummy out there, dear listener, and you start it coming on and it's too intense, just take a look at a clock and remember, it will be over in about 4 hours. And that should help you calm down.
That's a chunk of time.
It is, but compared to something like mushrooms, which can last up to 12 hours, it's a much smaller amount of time.
Just delete your day.
Yeah.
Cameron listens to the sound of liquid being poured into a cup.
Yeah, I don't think I like it. But I shouldn't still be high, right?
You shouldn't. But after my first time smoking, I felt high for fucking years after, even when I wasn't touching the stuff. I think that's mental illness.
Yeah, that's mental illness.
Cameron feels a prickle of worry underneath the haze.
Years?
Yep, it's what's it called? A depersonalization.
Yep, that's mental illness.
That's a word to hear from Brian. Made me feel like my own paws weren't my own, and everything looked all weird and distorted, like a filter was in front of my eyes. Cameron vaguely recalls.
It's really hard to imagine Brian being like, you ever think about hands, man? What even are hands?
I think it's more like, oh, this isn't me. And then he just kills several people.
Yeah, exactly.
Cameron vaguely recalls some of his own friends describing the exact same thing, even when their trip was supposed to be over. He'd experienced it himself while he was under the influence of various dissociatives. That sounds like it's the point of them going by the name.
Yeah.
Having the same experience while he's supposed to be sober is borderline terrifying, though.
Weed does that?
His worry and panic breaks to the surface for a second, and he feels like, for that moment, he's surfaced from the muddy depths of his confusion before slipping back under. He can't live in a dream for the rest of his life. What even is his life? Sitting here in a trailer with an old, slightly smelly bear? That's surprisingly... This
what
is
a kind and generous thing to say about Brian.
This Brian
only slightly
bathes?
smelly?
Just the way that his smell is described in the previous game is just so much That it's like, this Brian has bathed?
One of the other things is that crystal meth has a very, very identifiable smell. I want to be very clear. I have never done meth in my life. I mean, outside of like being prescribed Adderall, which isn't the same thing. But crystal meth has an extraordinarily identifiable smell. And if you have like any wits about you and you like enter a trailer or a place where people have done crystal meth before, even if you aren't familiar with it, you will smell it and then probably be able to guess that it is crystal meth. It sticks with things and is like very like sickly sweet and astringent smelling. It's very, very identifiable and extremely gross. So if Cameron has as much experience with drugs as he does, he should be smelling the meth on Brian right now.
Maybe Brian's sober.
I mean, even if Brian's sober, though, he sells it. He sells it out of this trailer or sold it out of this trailer. It would be.
I was gonna say, does he have customers anymore?
Yeah, that's a good question.
What if the meth lines have dried up in Echo?
Yeah. Well, like they say that like when a meth den explodes, as they do, you can usually smell it for like miles. Because it is just extraordinarily, it's just like, I don't know how to say it to, all of the people who live, wonderfully less experienced lives out there. But like meth is one of those smells where if you can smell it or in an area where it has been done before, it is just extraordinarily identifiable and it sticks with you and it's really hard to get it out of things. So like, I mean, Brian's trailer should smell pretty gross right now.
How did he even get here again? Where's Dev?
Oh, shit.
Cameron suddenly grips the table, paws shaking as he feels as if he's lifting out of his own body somehow, and that he has to hold on to something to remain in place. Hey, you alright, kid? Here, Brian ambles over to his fridge, opens the freezer, pulls out the ice tray and drops a few cubes into the mug, the ice clinking loudly. He stirs it for a few moments, then turns back to the trembling coyote. Hope you don't mind the ice, but it should cool enough to drink now. Still confused and terrified and just wanting something to do, to focus on, Cameron reaches out for the mug the bear is holding out to him. Said, why is he moving around so much if he's just making tea? I think he's grabbing what the other thing he's going to put in the tea.
Yeah.
I think he's drugging him. He takes it in a trembling paw, gulping it down. It's filled with honey and a strong taste of ginger, and it's unlike any chamomile tea he's had before. The amount of honey is surprising, and he briefly wonders if it's a bear thing, even though Devin never seemed to have much of an affinity for it. No, it's masking something.
Speciesism, prejudice.
Yeah. Wow, look at this Winnie the Pooh guy.
No, Cameron, Winnie the Pooh wears a shirt and no pants. Is the opposite of Brian.
Yeah. Winnie the Pooh is free chic. Still, Cameron doesn't get the full flavor of the concoction until he's finished it. And as he exhales, an odd, nutty taste mixed with what Cameron can only describe as dirt lingers in the back of his tongue. Cameron frowns at the bizarre, terrible tea. He can't help pulling a face as he looks at the mug, a thick, round glob of honey remaining at the base with dark particles slowly clicked around it.
I have an idea of what this is.
It's distracting enough that his panic attack is terminated before it can really begin. Brian laughs. Sorry about that. I like to add kava root to soothe anxiety, too. Should have warned you.
I fucking knew it. I can't believe kava root just came up after I mentioned it.
Didn't you literally just say, you should chew kava root?
Yeah, literally. Unbelievable.
How does this happen as often as it does? That was not telegraphed. Like, that was just...
No,
this just keeps happening in these games to us. Between you and me and Stephanie, the thing we say just immediately comes up afterwards to a surreal degree. What the fuck? Cameron had thought the taste was somehow familiar, but he supposes that any kind of root would have an earthy, bitter taste.
Oh, it's okay. I just wasn't expecting it. I read about kava a few times when I was looking for ways to help with anxiety. Never tried it, though.
Well, get ready for it to change your life. It's got me off all my chill pill meds. You like hearing that, right? That I'm not taking any of my meds. Me, Brian. I do have some leftover bars if you need something stronger, though.
That's real bad, because that's literally what Cam is. Well, I guess he's not. He had issues with opioids, but benzos are pretty rough, especially if you have addiction. They're extremely highly addictive. Xanax? I'll wait and see.
Well, that would be nice. Cameron already feels like falling asleep, so it doesn't seem like the best idea. While he mostly believes this bear's story, he doesn't want to be completely unaware of what's happening right now. I'm guessing you've had some experience with it before, huh? Cameron frowns at the table, not sure what to say. He doesn't really want to discuss his past with a stranger, even if the guy seems like he would understand. Brian puts his paws up, like he's showing that he's unarmed. Hey, I don't judge, kid. Imagine if he did. Imagine if Brian was judgy. The only thing he judges is gays. I was into that lifestyle for most of my life before I started turning things around. While Cameron's still cautious, he doesn't want to make it seem like he's suspicious. It doesn't feel like the best idea to sour things between him and the only other person with him in the middle of the desert.
Yeah, I did a bit of everything in middle school and high school. Only thing I got hooked on was opioids, though.
Oof. Brian says oof. You and half the country, kid. That's a rough one. The tiredness is starting to plateau, if not recede slightly, and Cameron feels an odd but welcome sense of empathy towards this bear. It must be the kava kicking in. Brian's face appears a bit more defined and clear, and there's a warmness in his eyes.
It was my first drug, too. I experimented with everything else because I was trying to find something less addictive and harmful.
Brian shakes his head. That's the problem with it.
Oh, I thought that was Cameron's dialogue.
Bad.
Sorry, I'm a bad co-host, everyone.
That's the problem with it. There ain't much out there that makes you feel that good. That's what I'm told anyway. Brian chuckles. I took one of my dad's hydros and ended up puking my guts out for hours. Guess I'm lucky I can't keep them down. Cameron thinks about that, about how nice it would have been if he had become violently ill whenever he tried opioids, or any drug for that matter.
Wait a second. Isn't Brian's dad out of the picture? Didn't we learn that in Echo? That he was raised by his mom?
I'm unsure.
I can't remember specifically, but if so, then he's literally just making shit up. I mean, not a surprise, it's Brian, but that's still a little bit terrifying.
I do sit here and just wonder if this is just like clean Brian. Like, yeah, if he really did quote unquote turn his life around in a way that probably is not making him a safe character at all, because he definitely is up. We already, just to make sure, like they had that little break in the middle just to make sure that we know and are reminded, like, yeah, no, he's definitely up to shit. He definitely captured Devin. Like, something is up, and we know from other contexts that he's the guy in the intro, but I think the intro felt like it was happening after Echo, maybe, but I'm not sure. But like, yeah, like the fact that they're playing so hard with the idea of Brian being reformed on some level is just so off-putting. And
well, it's also terrifying too, because like, imagine a Brian who has more clarity.
Yeah, I don't know what to do with that.
That turns him from a scary, rabid animal into like a calculating psychopath, and that is very, very dangerous. The other thing I wanted to mention, I just wanted to put it out there, is like the off chance that this isn't kava and that he's like dosed him with shrooms tea or something. And that's just because they keep mentioning shrooms and psychedelics, but also because Cameron just mentioned that like he's seeing the bear with more clarity. Granted, he could just be waking up, but like literally like hyper defined edges and like things like that are like an actual, that's like kind of what tripping looks like, especially at low doses. So like I'm just putting that out there, putting my feelers out for that one, because that would be not good, because it also makes you you're like, part of tripping is that you're in like a very suggestible state. So Brian could just be completely manipulating him.
It was actually a love potion.
Oh, how romantic. It's a dating sim now.
No.
Very bad. Very awful. Yeah, I'd say that's some good luck. I quit college or I quit in college and haven't done it since though.
Good for you. Brian gazes down his nose at Cameron, starting to frown. Cameron's ears twitch as he senses a sudden change in mood. Now, I don't mean to bring this up again, but did your, visions get more intense when you did heroin? At first, Cameron wants to correct the bear and say that he's never done heroin, but then stops as he thinks back. Of course, his visions got worse whenever he was on certain drugs, including opioids, but he had assumed back then that they were just agitating his already present delusions. It was only today that he'd made the connection between drug usage and hallucinations, or visions.
Yeah, actually, and a few times on other stuff too. Does that happen to you?
Definitely. That's an angry face.
Yeah.
Again, feelings of empathy grow in the coyote's chest. Just contrast these two faces right now.
Yeah. Like complete misjudgment of character.
I just couldn't see all the red flags, but it's my favorite color. There are others like him, just like him. You don't. No, not just like you. No.